Lesson 2-4 is over multiplying and dividing integers. Multiplying and dividing integers is really pretty easy. You multiply and divide just like normal, except you have to think about just one tiny little thing. If your numbers have the same sign, your answer is positive. If your numbers have different signs, your answer is negative. And then we throw in a little tricky thing about zeros. Anytime you multiply a number by 0, your answer is going to be a 0. But if you divide by 0, your answer is undefined. Let's do a couple of examples. I'm going to do -2 times -3. Those two numbers, those two integers have the same sign, so my answer is going to be positive. 6 is my answer. For the second example, I'm going to do 5 times the quantity of -3. 5 and -3 have different signs. My answer is going to be -15. And here's an example of multiplying by 0. 7 times 0 is just 0. But 7 divided by 0 or 7 divided by 0 is undefined, and they use undef as the abbreviation for undefined. You can't divide something by 0 parts. You can't take a whole pizza and say, hey, I'm going to share it between 0 people. It just doesn't work. Example 1 is asking us to find the product, which is the answer to a multiplication problem. Let's do -7 times -4. Those have the same sign, so the answer is going to be positive. And I just multiply like normal. 7 times 4 is 28. -4 times 10. Those two have different signs, so my answer is going to be negative, and 4 times 10 is 40. I'm going to give you a practice problem. -3 times 4 times -1. Remember, multiply two numbers at a time from left to right. Pause the video and see how you do. Okay, let's start with -3 times 4. They have different signs, so my answer is going to be negative. 12 times, bring down my -1. -12 times -1. Those two integers have the same sign, so my answer is going to be a positive 12. Example 2, is having us find the quotient, which is the answer to a division problem. And here I have 48 divided by -6. I'm going to divide like normal. 48 divided by 6 is 8. But these two numbers are different signs, so that will be a -8. Second problem is -42 divided by 0. Remember, we cannot divide by 0. It'll make your calculator explode. Not really, but it'll say domain error. -42 divided by 0 is undefined. Let's do a practice problem. I'm going to write down the problem, and then you pause the video and see how you do. Let's do 0 divided by -3. Okay, 0 divided by -3, that's just 0. You can divide 0 by a number. You just can't divide a number by 0. And the way that I remember it is that like a division sign written like this can also be written using the vinculum, the fraction bar. If we take a peek at these two examples, -42 divided by 0 could be written as -42 over 0. And 0 divided by negative 3 could be written as 0 over negative 3. Now, I've seen two different ways to remember this, and I'll show you both real quick. But the way that worked for me is to remember that the vinculum, we're going to imagine that it's the ocean. And that 0 is just this beach ball. And remember, Mrs. Bankett does not have very good artistic skills. So in our little story, we have beach balls on the water. And you can have a beach ball float on top of water. That's not breaking any rules of gravity or any rules of physics. You can have a beach ball float on top of water. That's okay. But have you ever seen a beach ball blown up of air, not cement, not held down by any sort of anchor, but blown up of air, you stick it underwater, and what happens? Well, the beach ball wants to go to the top of the ocean. So you can't have a situation where the 0 or the beach ball is underneath the water or the fraction bar. It doesn't happen that way. The world doesn't work that way. So you cannot divide by 0. That is undefined. The other way I've seen it written, and this might help you too, is that it is okay, and O being the 0, it's okay to have 0 on the top, but no to having 0 on the bottom. So again, the O would be your 0. So it's no, not okay to have 0 on the bottom, but it's okay to have 0 on the top. Whichever one works best for you, stick with it. Our problem-solving problem deals with a scuba diver who's swimming at a depth of negative 12 feet in the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary. She dives down to a coral reef that is 5 times this depth. What is the depth of the coral reef? Okay, to understand the problem, we need to know exactly what they're asking us to find. And they're asking us to find how deep is the coral reef. Drawing a picture is probably one of my very favorite strategies for problem solving. So whenever I can draw a picture, even though I'm really bad at drawing pictures, I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. So continuing on my beach theme, there is the water, and she is diving down to a depth of negative 12. Well, she is going to go down to a depth that is 5 times that. So that means in all, we should have 5 groups of negative 12. So I'm going to draw another arrow of my negative 12. I'm going to keep going until I have 5 of them. And I could add these negative 12s together, you know, negative 12 plus negative 12 plus negative 12 plus negative 12 plus negative 12. But if I remember, repeated addition is the same thing as multiplication. So since I have 5 negative 12s, I can take negative 12 times 5. Well, negative 12 and positive 5 have different signs. So I'm going to multiply like normal and get 60, but I need to tack on that negative sign since my two integers have different signs. Now, it's not enough just to circle that negative 60 because that negative 60 means something according to this problem. So the conclude section is asking us to write our answer out in a full sentence. So the coral reef is 60 feet or negative 60 feet below sea level. Whenever we're referring to below sea level or going down or descending, you usually represent that quantity with a negative sign. If we're going up or above sea level or ascending, you're going to use a positive sign for that integer. Well, that does it for multiplying and dividing, adding and subtracting integers. That wraps up all of our integer operations. I hope you found these videos useful and that you are well on your way to mastering your integer operations.